Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement, your no-hype source for financial advice in making informed choices about your retirement planning. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, hello, St. Louis, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement, your live and local, St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. I'm Jeff Lapidus, president of JBL Financial Services. Our offices are located in beautiful, I don't know what the weather's like, sunny downtown Olivet, Missouri. I am a 40-plus year veteran of the financial services area, a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager. And I'm joined by my incredibly able crew, my daughter, Aaron Lapidus, who is a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager, and my son-in-law, Rob Markham, our life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist. Good morning, gang.
Good morning.
Good morning. We help our clients make smart choices about their money. The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a written step-by-step strategy, a real game plan that has several goals in mind.
First is to preserve, protect, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate.
Second is to deliver a reliable stream of income, one they can count on, so they can do all the things they'd like to do in retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their healthcare needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and choosing the right plan to couple with their Medicare coverage.
And then when they're done enjoying their assets during their lifetime, we show them how to pass them on to the people they love. Whether it's their spouses or children, grandchildren, churches, or charities, whoever it might be, without Uncle Sam or the tax courts taking a big bite out of their money. And as their wealth managers, Aaron and I watch their money every single day to make sure they're staying on track. And that's why they call us the retirement coaches. Again, folks, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in to our show. End of the first quarter. Life is good. Markets have been up so far this year, which we love. We hope you're enjoying that as well. And what's more important is, it's Saturday morning, so we're here to answer your phone calls and take your questions at 314-931-5877. I don't have the thing in front of me. I've only said it for like 900 shows. Or 84126 from the KTRS text line.
There are many ways that you can stay in contact with us throughout the week, not just on Saturday mornings. You can log on to our website, jblfinancial.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you can click on the Contact Us button and request a coaching session, financial, Medicare, or both. You can even ask us a question during the show, and hopefully, if we have the opportunity, we will get to it live on the air. On the lower left-hand side of the screen, there's a pop-up box that appears that says sign up for our monthly newsletter. We call it the Coach's Corner. We do keep it updated every single month for you, not only on the website, but we email it out on the first of every single month, which happens to be Monday. So let's go over, the very end of March, since we're at, the second to last day.
This is the last week of the Coach's Corner, March 2024 edition. Some great articles there if you haven't read. The first one being, why do workers take less paid time off than they can? 90% of workers said having paid time off is extremely important, yet 50% said they take less time than they're entitled to. And, this article breaks down some of the reasons for that. And a couple of them are, manager, supervisor discourages taking time off. And 16% believe that they may risk losing their job if they take the time that they're entitled to, which, you add that up, that's almost a third of the people
have concerns.
Right. And this is part of their compensation, so that's kind of crummy.
Crummy.
I have other words to describe it, but we're on the radio, so I'm not going to take it there.
Certainly not.
I'm glad you're not saying that I resemble that remark, so it's okay.
Right, we've already gotten dinged once this year.
And our next article, beware of these life insurance beneficiary mistakes. Generally, life insurance proceeds aren't taxed, but there are exceptions. And the most common involves having 3 different people as owner, insured, and beneficiary. This unholy triangle can create a taxable event. This article breaks down some of the things to consider to avoid that. And as an aside, it's never a bad idea to sit down with a professional to figure out the best way to structure these policies so that you don't run into this. And our third article, individual bonds versus bond funds. What are the differences? Bond funds and individual bonds can both provide an income stream, but there are important nuances and subtleties between them. This is a great article comparing and contrasting the two and giving some insight into how they are the same and, more importantly, how they differ. And our last article in the newsletter this month is why family businesses should have succession plans. For family businesses, succession plans are designed to ensure an orderly transfer of ownership and leadership to the next generation, yet only a third of family businesses have a robust, documented, and communicated plan in place. This article lays out a roadmap one might consider when putting a succession plan in place. And that will do it for the March 2024 newsletter. And the new one hits on Monday, so be sure to check that out on our website.
That's right, or sign up. Hit that sign up button on the lower left-hand side of the screen. It's easily explainable, and we'll send that out to you every single month. You can also check out the March newsletter. We already have it posted on the website if you didn't get a chance to have it emailed to you this month.
April newsletter.
No, the March newsletter if you didn't have it emailed this month. Oh. Thanks. Anyway, Dad, are you still there? Apparently, he's lost us. Anyway,
actually, I did. I'm getting this constant beeping, so I'm hoping you're hearing from me.
We are hearing from you. Hopefully you can withstand the beeping and join us for our first topic of the day, because we are still waiting for your phone calls at 314-931-5877 or your text messages at 84126 from the text line. As the first quarter comes to a close, I think a lot of people that were considering retirement at the end of the year, maybe they decided to push it off. I know many businesses and corporations pay out bonuses in March from the previous year, so a lot of people decide to hang on through the first quarter of the year. Considering retirement is on a lot of people's minds for this year at this point. So I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to talk about, why people decide to have coaches in their retirement and how we create game plans for individuals that are looking at upcoming retirement.
Well, what are the factors in developing an individualized game plan?
That's a great question. The first thing that we want to consider is what assets and income flows are you bringing to the table? So that means, what have you accumulated over time in your retirement accounts? Were you able to access a pension? Do you have a pension, but you have an opportunity to potentially take a lump sum instead of the monthly income stream? What Social Security benefits have you accumulated over the course of your working career? Do you have other flows of income? Maybe you have a side business that you plan to continue. We see quite a few people in retirement either take up hobbies that have some income associated with them. Maybe you have some rental properties that are cash flow positive that you are going to continue to manage or have cash flow from those. We want to make sure that we can incorporate all of those potential components into how do we replace your main source of income while you were working, which is your paycheck.
I think maybe the most important part of the game plan, at least a concern that a lot of our clients have, is how will their game plan hold up in a volatile market environment?
That's also another great question. So, that's part of what we're here to do is discuss. First, we like to discuss the science behind retirement planning, which is Have you accumulated enough? What are your other flows of income in order to meet your monthly income need obligations? Before we really talk about what my dad likes to call the art behind retirement planning, which is what are we going to invest you in? How are we going to create that diversified portfolio that's going to deliver that reliable stream of income that you can count on in retirement?
So ultimately, it's an algebra problem. You have a certain magic number that you need every month to make your life work. And what we like to do is put that all together so to show you how that's going to happen in retirement.
Exactly.
And I was going to say, I know you have a very good example that we were going to walk into this morning, right, Sally?
Right, Sally? That's right. Joe and Sally came in to see us. And they both worked at a large telecommunications firm. Joe's retired. He's 56 years old. And Sally is 56, and she wants to retire by the end of the year. So they're pretty young. Yes,
they are. And, they had some very, very important but simple questions. Do we have enough to retire?
What's the sequence of taking money from various sources? And this is particularly important for Joe and Sally because they're underneath that magical age of 59 and a half, where there are no penalties for taking distributions from their retirement accounts. So we have a little extra work to do with Joe and Sally than with many individuals who are retiring, in their early to mid 60s, which is sometimes where, we were seeing people skew younger and younger into retirement. But because we know Joe and Sally, Joe's already retired and Sally's looking to retire, 3.5 years before they're able to easily pull money from those retirement accounts. We've got a little bit of extra work to do on the sequence of distributions for them to ensure that they have enough every single month.
And, can they do all the things they want to do and not blow through their capital? Because like you said, they are below what we normally see a retirement age. They're still in their 50s, 56, and they're both 56. So, like you said, we have some creative accounting to get to. So let's run through some of their assets.
And this is really how we begin the basis of designing an individualized game plan for people. Like we said at first, what assets and income flows are you bringing to the table?
Well, in the case of Joe and Sally, their traditional IRA assets, including lump sums, are $1.9 million.
All right, they have Roth assets of about $245,000, which is a great number. We usually don't see Roth assets in that large amounts because most people spent their entire working careers contributing to pre-tax accounts in their 401ks.
Their health savings accounts have a whopping $65,000. I thought that was a pretty large number that I'm not used to seeing.
That's awesome because we know that that's really a bucket that we can dedicate, especially in Joe and Sally's case, because they're 9 years away from Medicare eligibility when their medical expenses really drop. So we know that they have a nice bucket that we can rely on that's going to be tax-free for them to make distributions from and is not subject to that 59.5 rule in order to pay premiums, pay co-pays, pay for prescriptions, and help them subsidize their health insurance needs between now and 65.
Will be a great benefit as we bridge an almost 10-year gap into their Medicare eligibility. Their investment accounts, they've been prolific savers. They've managed to amass $1.1 million.
So that means that so we're calling them investment accounts, but that's also, they're after-tax savings essentially, which is nice. So that means that's money that's not subject to that 59.5 rule.
And their money market and CDs, $400,000.
Awesome.
So we add all that up and we come to a grand total of $3.7 million.
That's fantastic. Before we get into the additional math we want to talk about with Joe and Sally, we've got a quick text question I thought we could answer.
And our first catch of the day says, is JBL Financial a fiduciary firm, or do you get paid out of our investments?
Well, we do act as fiduciaries, which means we charge a fee. It's 1% annually for the money that we manage. So technically the answer to both of those questions is yes. We aren't paid commissions, meaning we aren't paid on the trades that we make. We're paid on 1% annually or 0.25% per quarter based on the account value of our clients' assets.
One thing I found interesting about the 1% is that it's never gone up since your dad's been in business.
That's right. We haven't subjected our clients to inflation.
Right. A lot of things have gone up over the last 25 years. Our fees aren't one of them.
That's very true. So back to Joe and Sally. We just mentioned that of all of the assets they've brought to the table, they have been able to save over the course of their working careers about $3.7 million, which is fantastic. Their total monthly income need is about $9,000 a month.
Wow. But we know we have to scale that up for Uncle Sam and taxes, so that leaves us with
Well, I think we already scaled it up. Looks like it. The monthly income's $9,000 over 12 months, $108,000.
Sounds good.
That's right.
I stand corrected. So we know we need $130,000 a year, and at a 4% withdrawal rate, we would need $3.2 million. But they have some issues.
Yep, like we mentioned at the beginning, they have 3 years until they reach that 59.5, or they're going to see a 10% additional penalty from withdrawals that they take not only from their traditional IRA assets but their Roth assets, and that makes up over 1.1 million of their overall assets.
But luckily, there is a rule in the IRS code book that allows us to have withdrawals from retirement accounts without paying extra penalties. But there's some catches. These rules have to be followed for 5 years or until the owner reaches 59.5, whichever is longer. So if they were to start on a Rule 72T schedule, and there are tables that the IRS provides to, and you have to pick from one of those tables.
If there are 3 tables, they all work out to a little bit less or a little bit more than 4% annually.
In Joe and Sally's case, that would push them to 61 or possibly even 62, that they would have to be on that schedule, couldn't deviate from it. So whereas normally you could take, penalty free at 59.5, being that they're doing this early and they're utilizing Rule 72T, they would have to be on that schedule for longer than normal. So they would be into about 61 or 62 on that schedule.
But there is an alternative. So we know Joe is retired. However, Sally has yet to retire. So that means her retirement assets most likely are still with the company that she is working for. So there is another rule, the 55 and over rule, that is another alternative for them where we can leave their assets at the 401k company, make as much or as little distributions as we'd like to meet their monthly income needs without having to be restricted with that 72T, which is one of the reasons it's really important to sit down with a professional when you're making these decisions, because if Joe and Sally had both executed rollovers before they went in to see someone, now they're kind of trapped in that 72T option, or specifically only taking from their investment accounts, which aren't subject to the 72T rule or their after-tax dollars.
You're absolutely right. Different rules for different tools. I like that. Once you do execute the rollover into the IRA, you're now subject to IRA rules, whereas a 401k has different rules governing it. And like you said, these rules are irreversible. Once you do it, you're now subject to a new environment and a new structure. So it's important, again, to sit down with someone before
making
you do
some
this,
decisions.
right? You don't want to be a day late and $1 short in this regard.
Well, I was going to say, overall, then, based on the level of assets they have, but we were using our prudent withdrawal rate percent, they should be okay until their Social Security eligibility, which again for both of them isn't really for approximately 6 years, or actually 7 years, until they reach age 62 and ultimately normal retirement age at age 67. At that point in time, we can't turn down the faucets, including to take into account their Social Security income, which we think is around $5,000 a month, and lowering that amount would certainly put them in a situation where their capital could hopefully grow faster because we're not pulling out 3 to 4% per year. And that could be a very good result. At the same time, they have these HSA assets, which they could then use to fund their retirement premiums, pre-Medicare, right, honey? And then obviously post-Medicare. That's
right. So it like we mentioned, it is nice that they have this very large chunk of HSA dollars, which the cool thing is they can utilize the health insurance marketplace, which is income-based. And because HSA dollars are tax-free when withdrawn, they'd be able to utilize not only taking money from their HSA, not disturbing the rest of their other assets in order to meet that obligation, but still potentially take advantage of a subsidy based on their taxable income and hopefully lower those premiums over the next several years, because we have 9 years to go before they are Medicare eligible.
Absolutely. And we also have, we can utilize some of those maturing CDs and money market account money.
That's a great point, which is they've got some completely liquid. Well, they have some money market assets that are completely liquid. The CDs are eventually going to come due. That's $400,000 of assets that we wouldn't have to disturb their current investment accounts in order to make that income stream work. But most likely, we'd probably be looking at a strategy of utilizing some withdrawals from the 401ks in addition to that after-tax money, which includes the money market and CDs as they mature.
Yeah, because we know that at least under the current tax rates for a married couple filing jointly, they can earn, or they can actually have taxable, i.e. IRA distributions up to $90,000 per year, still be in the 12% effective tax bracket. So from a planning point of view, we've got many sources of funds, the different taxability of those funds. And so we should be able to do, and we do, is to build a really tax-efficient and tax-effective, even more important, income stream for these folks so they can do the things they want to do. And then, as the master plumbers that we are, we're going to adjust those faucets as they become eligible for Social Security, Medicare, things like that, which is great.
That's right. And you know what? I think what we should do is take our first break of the hour. We've got a couple of text questions on deck that we can get to when we get back. So please don't touch that dial. We'll be here to answer your questions at 314-931-5877 or send us a text at 84126 on the text line.
Mathematics teacher is sought in St. Louis, Missouri to design, write, and use lesson plans. Teach mathematics to elementary school students, prepare students for standardized tests and math-related competitions. Produce formal and informal testing. Gather, manage, and maintain all required reports and records. Requirements are bachelor's degree in math education or elementary education and 24 months full-time experience in job or any teaching in a school environment, including writing lesson plans and coordinating extracurricular activities required. Monday through Friday, 40 hours a week. Send resume by mail only to Na A. Chelik, Gateway Science Academy of St. Louis, 6576 Smiley Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, 63139. Again, send resume by mail only to Na A. Chelik, Gateway Science Academy of St. Louis, 6576 Smiley Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, 63139.
It's time to thaw out, but be sure to keep those freezers stocked this spring with Dogtown Pizza. Josh here, and whether it's the first nice day of the year or another freak snowstorm, always keep a couple of Dogtown pizzas on hand in case of a hunger emergency. And with 11 flavors, you can have a different pizza every time the temperature changes. So take a tip and save a trip by stocking up on Dogtown pizzas this spring.
You know what they say, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and windows and doors are usually that first impression when it comes to your home. Dalco Home Remodeling custom makes their windows and doors, and better yet, they make them here in Missouri. Dalco Home Remodeling is locally and family owned, celebrating 50 years, so they know a thing or two. The Dalco team is known for quality and customer satisfaction. That's the way it was 50 years ago when when they started, and that's still true today. So if you're looking to change the look of your home without breaking the bank, call Dalco Home Remodeling. They do free in-home estimates. Just call 314-298-7300 and make an appointment. You can also check them out online at DalcoHomeRemodeling.com. As they've always said, if you buy somewhere else and find out how much you could have saved at Dalco, you'll blow your stack. So call Dalco first, 314-298-7300.
Hi, this is Dr. Dan Lang. Join me for Animal Talk every Sunday afternoon from 2 to 3 on the Big 550 KTRS, the Animal Talk of St. Louis.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to Straight Talk on Retirement. We're here to answer your questions, 314-931-5877, or on the text line 84126 on the text line. Before we get to our next topic, thought we would get back into our text questions.
Absolutely. And our next texter writes, do Roth IRA withdrawals count as income when Medicare premiums are determined? They do not, because they are not taxable income.
That's correct. But you do want to be careful because there are some things that you wouldn't expect that do count towards Medicare premiums. For example, and this is the number one that I've found, especially with clients that have amassed a lot of after-tax assets, if you happen to have purchased municipal bonds for their tax-preferred treatment, that income actually is recaptured in your Medicare premium calculation. So if you are someone that has utilized the tax advantages of municipal bonds over the course of time, you do want to make sure that that's added back into your calculation in terms of your Medicare premium adjustments. But Roth distributions, if you're able to offset long-term capital gains and losses from assets, then that won't be, then you'll be able to offset any of that income. But anything else in terms of Social Security income is counted, distributions from traditional IRA assets, if you have earned income because you might still be working, if you have the sale of a second home and you have large long-term capital gains there, all of that's going to be counted. If you have large distributions because you've inherited assets and you are making beneficiary IRA distributions, all of that income will be counted as well.
Yeah, you know a lot of stuff.
Thanks, Dad.
Well, that's really important, and helping to build that income, build a tax-efficient income, is really what we're talking about as well. And certainly, if you're not Medicare eligible, that also applies against the subsidies for if you may be eligible for subsidy under the Unaffordable Care Act.
And we've got a relatively long text question. You want to grab it?
Yeah, I will attempt it. First, thank you for answering my Social Security question last weekend. Now, for this weekend.
We love a repeat caller, texter.
My wife and I are 63 years old and will wait until 67 for Social Security. Due to pensions and other current taxable income streams, we can convert an average of $20,000 a year over the next 4 years to Roths and still keep us out of what currently is the 22% bracket. Once we start drawing Social Security, Roth conversions look like they will be in the 22% bracket. The conversions during Social Security look to diminish returns, look to be a diminishing return situation. Am I missing something? My apologies if you've covered this before.
I think that you now, I know my dad's just chomping at the bit to complain about the Roth conversion, but if you are someone that's looking to do a Roth conversion, I think that, 4 years, that's $100,000 that you've converted over the next 4 years before you get to Social Security eligibility. You're keeping yourself out of the 22% tax bracket, which also means when you get to Medicare, you aren't pushing yourself into a new Medicare premium either. That you are doing, if this is something that you've decided to do, you're doing it in the most efficient way. I would agree that once you bump past the 22% bracket, why would you continue to convert those assets? Because once you get to 73, 75, depending upon your age, when you get there to take required minimum distributions, you've only got to pull about 4%, which still shouldn't push you into too high of brackets, hopefully.
Yeah, I would just add here that if you're someone, and I have a feeling they're not, but if you're someone that has not accumulated significant after-tax assets, this would be a reason maybe to consider a Roth conversion. But again, if you do happen to find that you will need capital for capital projects, if you don't have an existing Roth, you would be creating a new Roth IRA, and therefore any distributions that are made from that IRA during that time period, the interest wouldn't be tax-free, it would be taxable. So it's a little tricky in terms of timing. I like the person's thinking, but again, what I would say is that why go into a Roth? I mean, once you're pulling the money from the IRA, why not just stash the money on the side, have it fully liquid, and maybe not be subject to those distribution rules.
That's a good point. A lot of people don't remember the one caveat of the Roth needs to be in existence for 5 years. If you already have a Roth that's been in existence for at least a year, you plan to do 4 more years of Roth conversions, then you're just fine. But if your first year of Roth conversions is this year and you're planning to, you'll have to wait at least 1 additional year after you complete the conversions in order to access those funds without any tax consequences. So you do want to be careful of that additional caveat. It's not just 59.5. It's also that the Roth has been in existence for 5 years.
I'd just like to know what I see the question, but what is the motivation behind the question is what I would, maybe there's a better way of attacking the problem. Well, I'd like to leave these assets onto my children or grandchildren, and I don't want them to, have to
pay the taxes.
Right. And so, if we could get to the motivations, maybe there is an alternative here, but, it's hard to, speak to it when you just have the question mechanically put in front of you.
That's fair. I would also say, depending upon the amount of assets that you have in IRA assets, converting $100,000 really maybe only saved you $4,000 of required minimum distributions when you get to 75, right? Because 4% of 100,000.
Correct.
Boy, that's good, and I would, I think what's nice here is that our texter is obviously asking us as financial advisors, but I would certainly suggest this is a really great conversation for them to have with their advisor.
Absolutely. And, we have Judy on the line with a tax on assets question.
Good morning, Judy.
Good morning, guys. Hey, Jeff, the last time we were over there, you asked us what we were going to do with all this moolah. So we've been thinking about that. So obviously, you know how much moolah there is. When we come see you in a couple of weeks, is there anything else we need to bring?
Yeah, blueberries.
You knew that was coming. It's not even blueberry season.
Judy's I understand. Judy's a fabulous baker, and she made me chocolate-covered blueberries. Woo-hoo! Life is good.
I am your favorite person, right?
You better believe it. Next to my daughter sitting there, and my wife, of course.
Well,
okay.
Well, Judy, I know that it's not even blueberry season yet.
Thank you, Aaron. And so, Rob, this year
I wasn't putting her on the hook for
pick.
anything.
I'm sorry, Judy?
This year, you better bring her to pick.
Oh, absolutely.
Blueberries. Okay,
it's
I'm
a great
holding
time.
you to it.
He hasn't seen much of Illinois, and
it's been on the list of things to do. We've just been so so tied down. We're moving right now, but definitely as the weather improves, we definitely want to be out there.
The Shawnee Forest is not only beautiful but historical.
And you know that my husband can give you a grand tour.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's great.
Yes.
Well, thank you for calling. I hope we answered your question.
Hey, wait a minute. No, you didn't answer my question. Do we need to bring anything else?
Dad, do they need to bring anything else along with them aside from the blueberries?
No, I know that they're going to bring their wonderful disposition, so we'll be just fine.
Okay.
Can't wait to see you guys. Can't wait to see you guys.
Blueberries. All right.
Thank you.
In a couple of weeks. Bye.
See you soon.
Very good. That's fun. They're really. I mean, other than obviously meeting new listeners and who may want to become clients, it's so much fun to meet with clients, to get up to date on where they are in their situations, answer their questions, because we do know that things always change, and having that game plan, having that base to run from, really, I think, provides most of our clients this ability to do other things, ask questions, explore other things, and really, I think it gives them an additional peace of mind, a little bit more peace of mind, so that's wonderful. And we certainly, obviously, Judy's one of our favorites, and can't wait to see her soon.
Absolutely, and we've got another text question on the line, and our texter writes, if you inherit money from a Roth IRA, can it be rolled over into your Roth and keep it that way, or does it have to be rolled over into a different IRA? You can't roll that over at all.
But you can't roll it into your Roth. What you'll have to do is create a beneficiary Roth IRA, which will have to be liquidated over the course of 10 years. However, there are no tax implications for this for you.
I was just going to say we can't directly import it into your IRA, but if you're participating in a 401k at work.
Well, true, but that would be if there were tax implications, because you don't need to reduce your taxable income when you're taking money out of a Roth, right? There's no taxes.
Correct.
So what you could do is, if you want to try to import this into your Roth IRA, that you can make, instead of having to make contributions from your after-tax cash, you can make distributions from the Roth and make your annual Roth contribution. Now, obviously, you may have to take slightly more out of the beneficiary Roth account because it's going to have to be liquidated over 10 years, but you do have a ready-made contribution available to you for your Roth account.
I was just thinking that maybe he would turn up his contributions at work
Could do that
while
too.
Sucking down, basically replacing his salary, depending on what was in the Roth, and replacing his salary while socking money away, so it's almost like a one-for-one.
Well, it's almost even better, right? You get to reduce your taxable income and live off the same amount.
That's what I was thinking, because it seems like our texter wants to basically import this into his own retirement account, and unfortunately they don't allow for a direct transfer into his, but we can be a little bit creative.
I think you're right, and I guess really the overriding principle here that I think this person is asking, we get this all the time, is the only human being that can take money directly from a retirement account and put it into their retirement account is a spouse, because there are unlimited transfers at life and at death for spouses. But anyone else, you inherited, as an example, in this case, you inherit a Roth, you inherit an IRA. You're not permitted to, because you're not a spouse, to directly import that money into your account. As was said, at death, the beneficiary IRA is created. Then the real question becomes, can you match those distributions either with current contributions to retirement accounts, either traditional or Roth, or are you eligible for a Roth contribution during the year, in which case then you're indirectly moving mom or dad's money into your assets. So again, unless you're a spouse, no direct transfers.
And the other nice thing is if you're a spouse, when you do that direct transfer, you aren't subject to the distribution requirements of beneficiary accounts because that's essentially for everyone that's a non-spousal beneficiary of retirement accounts has certain rules that they're subject to, whereas if you receive money from a spouse rather that's predeceased you, when you import that into your retirement account, if that's what you've chosen to do, you don't have any excess distribution requirements aside from if your spouse was required minimum distribution age and they had traditional IRA assets. You want to make sure that full required minimum distribution was taken before the end of the year before you move that into your IRA account, just so you make sure that you've met all of those requirements.
Yes, and that only applies at the year of death.
Right. During the year of, yep.
And with that, I think we should take our second break of the hour. So don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on retirement after these messages.
Here's our story. Tony and Denise, brother and sister team, born and raised in good old St. Louis, started in 2009.
More like 1959.
Started our business in 2009 with the idea of buying in bulk in order to save you money.
Our sales staff will educate you on products and features that are most important to you. We can offer top brands like GE at the lowest price every day.
Come by and visit any of our 4 showrooms or shop us online at theappliancediscounters.com, where our savings are your savings.
Refinitiv US LLC, now part of LSEG, seeks a senior software engineer in Creve Coeur, Missouri to define, develop, test, and maintain a software development pipeline that handles tasks ranging from initial builds to automated testing to production deployment of software systems. May telecommute from commuting distance to Creve Coeur, Missouri per company hybrid work policy. Salary $126,298 to $156,600 per year. To apply, please send resume to resumes@refinitiv.com and refer to job ID YM747.
Andy from Hats and Stuff. It's time to gear up, St. Louis, as the Blues fight for a playoff spot. The City SC continue to impress, and the Cardinals are wrapping up spring trading, getting ready for the new season. And the concert season begins this week, and we're loaded with cowboy hats. Yeehaw! Located at Westport Plaza, across from the Drunken Fish and the Kobe Steakhouse, or 24/7 at hatsandstuff.com, or at Facebook and Instagram at Hats and Stuff, and the Soulard Farmers Market on Saturday. Hats and Stuff. Good stuff at really great prices.
Cardinals opening day set for Thursday, and we will be there. 360 rooftop at the Hilton at the ballpark.
The Hall of Famers in their red jackets are back, and so are we at the 360 rooftop at the Hilton.
Hey, Julie, ever been to a Cardinal game?
Are you kidding me? Of course.
Stop by for a pregame lunch, cocktails, or after the game.
That's the Cards home opener on Thursday atop the 360 rooftop at the Hilton St. Louis.
Do I say that's a winner, or do you say that's a winner?
That's a winner.
Yeah.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, welcome back. It's 9:48 here on the Big 550 KTRS, Talk Radio St. Louis. We're here to answer your questions during hour number 1. And don't forget, we got hour number 2 coming up right after the next commercial break. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 931-5877 or 84126 from the KTRS text line.
And being that the text line is quiet and we don't have any callers on the line, let's talk a little bit about Paul. And Paul came to visit Erin and I last week. He just turned 65. He is actively working at a major defense contractor, and he plans to work until his normal retirement age at 66 years old and 7 months.
So that's just another year and a half.
Yep. He sees the light at the end of the tunnel.
It's awesome.
He came to us after visiting another financial advisor who recommended that he do a $500,000 partial in-service distribution to a self-directed IRA. His current 401k is totaling $1.7 million. At the time he received the investment recommendation to purchase an annuity in the new IRA, he wanted a second opinion before completing the transfer.
So we thought this would be a great addition to our first topic when we were talking about Joe and Sally in terms of making distributions from your 401k account either before you retire or after retirement in certain situations. Does it always make sense to either do rollovers or what we like to call this is an in-service distribution, because Paul's still going to be in service to his company, so he'll still be working, making contributions to his 401k.
Let's put a little color on that. What is an in-service distribution? It is a tax-free transfer to a self-directed IRA. So you can still continue, as Aaron said, to participate in your current plan.
That's right. You can self-direct the investments into another option. So, for example, if you're working with a company where you don't love the investment options, or in Paul's case, he was recommended, which we're not going to focus on the annuity recommendation, but you really don't have access to annuity purchases inside of 401ks. If that's something that you wanted to do, you would need to complete that in-service distribution to have access to other investment options.
He can take distributions as needed. Now, obviously, that would be taxable, and he can receive investment advice.
That's right. So above and beyond the education that can be provided in 401ks, which every 401k it has an advisor attached to it that can provide education to you, information about your investment options. But if you're truly looking for not only investment advice but direction, most investment advisors require that those funds be under their management.
Except us.
Exactly, because what else do you get when you execute an in-service distribution? You get to pay your financial advisor.
Your financial advisor a nominal fee for investing the assets.
And, in general, we never recommend this, and we're also really reluctant to execute in-service distributions when we don't consider people potential clients once they've decided to engage us, even if we aren't necessarily manage their assets quite yet. We have quite a few people that have come to us, and just like in Paul's case, they are on the track to retirement, but they haven't quite retired yet. And like many individuals, maybe they don't have any other investable assets aside from what they've accumulated with their assets at work. Some advisors do require that they have assets under management for them to be considered clients, whereas we know that eventually we'll have the opportunity to work with Paul's assets when the time comes, so we're willing to consider him a client. Now, we can't manage those assets directly. We have to continue to provide education as to how we would manage those assets until Paul is ready to retire and actually execute that rollover.
I was going to say, I think the big deal here really comes back to I think our first text question of the day, which was, are you fiduciaries? We're required to act in a fiduciary capacity, which means to put your interests first when we make recommendations. And the question you really have to ask yourself when you're receiving a recommendation like this is, who ultimately really is going to be benefiting from this? We know at the end of the day, when assets are moved under management with an advisor, including us, you receive a fee and you're charged that fee. But the other question becomes, are you in a rate environment, and maybe that's just as important, that's better for you? Because we know that money that's inside of qualified retirement plans, whether they're IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, they're required to use what are called institutional fund shares, which means that most folks have mutual funds in their plans, which means they have to use the lowest share class. Obviously, as fiduciaries, we're also required to use the lowest fund class as well. So who's really benefiting from the transaction? That's what you need to ask yourself.
Hugh Bono, who benefits? I always like to ask that in all aspects of life.
That's a good one. Okay, let's continue.
And so, what's really the job, or what do we really consider our job as our clients' retirement coaches or financial advisors. And really, the first and most important goal is our job is to synergize investments inside and outside of your retirement plan. So in some cases, you may have accumulated assets outside of your retirement plan at work. Maybe you worked for a previous employer, you rolled that 401k into an IRA. Maybe you've accumulated some after-tax assets that you've been investing over time. What we consider our job is to take a look at what you have inside of your 401k and what you have outside that maybe we've had the opportunity to manage, and ensure that all of these assets are working together even before those 401k assets come directly under our management. Oh, we've got a great text question. It's really a follow-up here, so I think we should grab it before the end of the hour.
Absolutely. And the follow-up concerning our motivation. We currently have $360,000 in Roths IRAs and are looking to convert to get RMDs down a little. Our current tax deferred is around $950K, and Social Security will be around $66,000 combined, plus a variable annuity that I have that pays $37,000 annually, and have a little farm ground we are renting out.
Well, I mean, you know what I think is interesting here is with $950,000 of IRA assets or pre-tax assets, the required minimum distribution, and this assumes that both spouses are going to turn RMD eligibility at the same time, it's going to be about $38,000 a year. So you're really only reducing that by about $4,000 a year over the course of the next 4 years, which, as long as you're comfortable paying those taxes now versus just a little bit more later, I think you're going to end up in almost the exact same tax bracket with or without the conversion.
Well, honey, I'm just thinking that they're going to be at a higher effective tax rate by doing the conversion today. So I certainly wouldn't see where that makes sense for them to even consider. But again, sometimes people get caught in the literature, and again, I think the misconception that required minimum distributions are just some gigantic amount that can't be easily handled or managed. And the truth is, that's just really not the case. We keep talking about 4%, and really, that's all that it is. So, at the end of the day, we know that the rule really simply works is that taxes that you pay today are more valuable than taxes you pay in the future because of the present value of money.
Right. And the other thing, Rob, you always like to bring up, which is that when you're converting, let's say $20,000 even at the 10% bracket, which is probably closer to the 15% bracket, you're going to lose the growth on that $3,000 or between $2,000 and $3,000
you've
forever.
Lost the $2,000 right off the bat. You've also lost all the associated growth with that. And then if you start scaling that up, scale it up to $100,000 or $200,000, you're not only you're taking the haircut right off the bat, but now, if you're going to be working and your assets are going to be working for another 5, 10, 15, 30 years, that's a lot of money and there are ways of mitigating, the taxes are going to be paid if you're worried about passing these assets on. There are stratagems we can employ to mitigate that
not
don't
only during
require
life,
you
but
to,
also
right,
after as well.
That don't require you to take that kind of haircut, not only right off the bat, but again, all the associated growth that goes along with it.
It's a war game with taxes, and the thing is that we have to remember is that the landscape does change.
Right.
At this moment, we're sort of getting ready for another, excuse the term, election of our lifetimes. That's going to come up in another 10 months, and if the Democrats prevail, we're probably going to see a push towards tax increases, and we also know that the Trump tax cuts are supposedly going to be sunsetting at 25. But at the same time, if Trump wins, he's a tax cutter, and that's pretty much the Republican philosophy, which is cut taxes, which frankly at the end always increases the amount of revenue that comes into the Treasury. Even though it may be counterintuitive, it really isn't, because you actually open up more capital for availability. So taxes could rise in the future, but we also know they could fall in the future.
And
so
I would also say, especially when we're talking about sunsetting of the Trump tax cuts, if the Biden administration doesn't make actual tax changes, I don't think most people are going to see massive changes to their tax liability, because even with all of the changes that the Trump tax cuts had, there were so many offsets that most people found they were paying about the same amount. The doubling of the standard deduction. I know we widened the brackets, but we also lost a lot of deductions that used to be available. So I would say that the sunsetting of the Trump tax cuts on their own aren't going to have as large of an impact as most people are anticipating.
Yeah, and don't make decisions on what could happen in the future, because the future doesn't always unfold the way that you think.
And speaking of the future, we'll be right back with our second hour of Straight Talk on Retirement.
Choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to hour number 2 of Straight Talk on Retirement. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
I'm Aaron Lapidus, the retirement coach.
And I'm Robert Markham, your life insurance and fixed annuities sales specialist. And we've just got a small follow-up to our last Roth conversion question. And our texter writes, "Thank you for your input. I was thinking the same way on this. Have a happy Easter." You as well, sir.
Yes, and to everyone out there, happy Easter.
I hope we were able to put some color to your questions, and hopefully now you have more answers than questions.
Absolutely.
And now, because you care, we talk Medicare.
Just the greatest line on radio.
The people demand it. This week I thought we would go through some Medicare questions and myths and the lore behind the myths.
The lore.
Attempt to demystify some of these common misconceptions concerning Medicare, because, a lot of people will, I heard this, or, my brother-in-law told me that, and,
my friends say,
the guy at the water cooler at work said this, and, so I think this would be a good opportunity to go through some of the most common questions and myths associated.
All right, let's do it.
So, question 1, how much is Medicare, and can I get it paid for? The myth: Medicare will pay for my Part B premiums based on the commercials I've seen.
So this is it's Joe Namath, right?
I think it's Joe, but they've got an assortment of people doing it now, depending on where you are, where you live.
Well, Joe Namath is the national one who's like the call center, but I do know that there are some other famous NFL legends that have signed on with different insurance companies to promote. I know, I think we saw Mr. Franco in Pittsburgh before he passed away,
yes,
promoting United Healthcare at some point. But nonetheless, unfortunately, while there are many different levels of Medicare Part B costs, the standard for 2024 is $174.70 a month. Medicare will only provide Part B givebacks on certain plans that meet income limitation criteria. So that means for most people that you would have to be dual eligible for Medicare and Medicaid. Being a low income individual might qualify you for some either givebacks or reductions in your Medicare Part B premium. But unfortunately for most people, you're paying the $174.70, or like we had a couple of text questions before, what goes towards, your income in terms of Medicare, you could be paying more for your Medicare Part B.
Yeah, the limit on the income limit is $103,000 if you're single, and $206,000 if you're filing jointly.
And that, like almost every other income threshold number, is adjusted on an annual basis, so you do want to take a look at that. Medicare Part B has a 2-year look back on your income, which means they're going to look back 2 years in order to determine what your Medicare premium is going to be for the year that you elect, and then every subsequent year they are going to look back 2 years. So if you happen to have one high income year because you were retiring, or because I mentioned previously, maybe you sell a second house and you have a large amount of income, it's only going to impact you for 2 years in advance from that year. You're not locked into the premium forever.
That's certainly an important thing to consider. And question 2, I've heard the best Medicare plan is, and then the myth being, my friends told me to get the same plan as them because it works so well for them.
So here's the thing that I think most people miss about Medicare. You actually get to individualize it to your own healthcare needs. Now, not everything is going to be perfect. There are people that are on relatively expensive medications where it's hard to contain the costs. However, those things will be changing in the future. But you get to choose a Medicare plan that not only fits your prescriptions, fits your physicians, but fits the things that you do the most, meaning let's say, for example, you're a type 1 diabetic. You consume quite a bit of durable medical equipment. You can choose a plan that covers that the best for you. Maybe you're someone aging into Medicare and you're relatively healthy. You see the doctor a few times a year and you want to take advantage of all those extra benefits that the Medicare Advantage plans offer, but you don't care about the over-the-counter stuff, so maybe you really want that fitness benefit. Or you have a specific gym that you'd specifically like to continue using and you want it paid for. You can first make sure that your physicians and prescriptions fit, and then find the extra benefits that suit you the best. Now, that's not the primary goal of Medicare to look at the dental, the hearing, the vision, and those other extra benefits like the fitness allowance. But those are all expenses that people have on an ongoing basis that they don't usually factor into their health care. We can now factor that in for you.
Absolutely. And, right now I think Aetna offers a fabulous plan, I believe, and it works for many, many people. But to say categorically, well, because it works for Sally, that it's going to work for Jim, it's going to work for Peter, no. This is why it's so important to, come in, sit down with Frank, let's run through what your prescriptions are, how you're consuming your healthcare, who your doctors are. Let's put it all up on the whiteboard and let's see what works best for you. And in a lot of cases, it probably might be could be the plan that your friends have told you about at work, but
maybe you find something better.
Right? Maybe you're the one saying, "Well, that
sounded great.
That sounded great, but I have all that and then some." So
sure.
Again, it doesn't cost anything to sit down with Frank. It only costs something if you don't, or potentially could.
I like that.
If I could add something here. And this is something obviously I've gotten from you over the years, honey, is that your parts A and B in Medicare are covering 80% of most cover charges. So what you're really looking at is, how do I fill the gap that Medicare isn't going to cover? And then how do I fill the gap on things that aren't covered at all by the health plans at all? That can be different between yourself and, frankly, your spouse. I know from my experience, my wife and I have different plans because we have different needs. We have different prescriptions. We see the physicians at different times. And so it's really important that when you have an opportunity to customize your plan, you do that. There are no discounts for having the same plan as your spouse does. So this is really your time to be able to take control of your choices. And it doesn't get any better than that. And so, not too much of an infomercial here, but, our office is the largest writer of Medicare plans in the state of Missouri. And we've helped thousands of our listeners, and we continue to help hundreds more every single year in making these changes or choices. And it's fun, and it can really, truly be a very important and incremental piece of your overall financial plan. So getting it right, keeping it right, is one of the best financial decisions you can have. So it's easy to do, right? Give Frank a call at our office, 314-863-0008. Or you can go to our website, hit the Contact Us section, send a note, say, hey, I need to talk to Frank.
And he will talk to Frank.
Happy to visit with you.
That's right.
That's right. And it isn't just open enrollment or annual enrollment. We're helping folks make these decisions. Obviously, so we're talking about creating their game plans. Hundreds every single year, and it's a blast.
That's right. And if you have questions, maybe you're not quite ready for enrollment. Maybe you heard one of these myths, so you have a question. Frank's available in the office every single day, so you can give us a call. You can get those questions answered. You don't have to live in worry or concern or make a decision without having the best possible information.
Absolutely. It doesn't cost to sit down with Frank. It only costs if you don't, or potentially can.
So give us another question based on a fun myth that we've heard.
Question: can I change plans when I come on to Medicare? The myth: I could be stuck in a plan forever if I don't qualify to change plans.
Could be stuck forever.
Like they were in Hades. You're here now.
Well, for some people that might be a joy. They don't have to think about it ever again. They're just on the same plan forever. But as your healthcare needs change, you do have the opportunity to make changes to your Medicare benefits. There are several enrollment periods. The main one beginning with the annual election period, which everyone has access to as long as they're already enrolled in Medicare. That begins October 15th and ends December 7th. If you're on a supplemental plan with a prescription drug plan, it gives you two choices. You can either change your prescription drug plan, or you could take a look at Medicare Advantage and see what that looks like. If you're on Medicare Advantage, it gives you the opportunity to look across all the Medicare Advantage plans and see if you'd like to make a change. If you are moving and you've left the service area of your current policy, so that doesn't mean that you have to leave the state. It could mean you leave the county and your plan is no longer available to you.
Like you were in St. Louis County and now you're in Franklin County.
Yes, and actually that's a great example because the further out you go from main centers of population, it can change the plans that are available to you.
But not to worry because you get a special election period, isn't that right?
That's right, and you get to not only do you get to change Medicare Advantage plans in that situation, you could change back to a supplement as if you had never chosen Medicare Advantage in the first place. So you have a lot of availability to you. If you're in your first year of enrollment on a Medicare Advantage plan, that could be the first year you're enrolled in Medicare, or 10 years into Medicare, you decide you want to try Medicare Advantage out. The first year is called your free look period. That means you get to look at it essentially for free, because if you decide you're not in love with it anymore, you can go back to the supplement you were originally on, or go to traditional Medicare if it's your first year on Medicare without any medical underwriting. Now, if you're on Medicare Advantage and you exceed 1 year and you don't have access to a special election, you will need to go through medical underwriting in order to get onto a supplement if that is something that your true heart desires. It's not nearly as difficult as life insurance underwriting, but they will ask several medical questions. If you don't qualify with one company, you can always take a look at another, or you just have the joy of staying with Medicare Advantage, and maybe it's time to take a look at your Medicare Advantage plan and find one that suits you a little bit better.
This next one is a very common one that we run into a lot, and the question being, do I have to take Medicare if I'm still working, and will there be a penalty for not taking Medicare at 65? The myth associated with this is I will have to pay a lifetime penalty if I do not take Medicare when I first become eligible.
So,
can you demystify this for our listeners? Because it just seems it's a reoccurring, a cause for concern for a lot of people that walk through our doors.
It is a very large cause for concern, and I used to say a lot, the government knows who you are. Do not worry. You don't have to register with Medicare. Let's say you're like many individuals who come in and see us. You're not quite ready to retire at 65. You work for a company that has more than 20 employees. Medicare doesn't want you. They don't. They want you to stay on your group health insurance policy. They want your employer to continue to be responsible for helping cover your medical expenses. They don't want to take on the liability, so you don't have to enroll.
And I think, some of the scare phrases, penalty, lifetime, you start combining those two, and
sure.
Right away, people's anxiety is triggered. I mean, why wouldn't it be? No one wants to be penalized, certainly not penalized for
the rest of their life.
So, when you put those two together, you mix it around in a bowl, you pour it out like, hey, look, I heard I'm going to be penalized for life if I don't do X, and so I definitely understand where the concern is coming from.
Here are the general rules. if you are turning 65 and you are on individual health insurance, maybe you are self-employed and you have coverage through Obamacare, or you have a grandfather policy from nearly 15 years ago where you went directly to an insurance company and you pay directly to an insurance company. You have one person or maybe your spouse and children on the plan. So you're on a family policy, you're on an individual or a husband and wife plan. You're on COBRA and you're turning 65. You work for an employer that has less than 20 employees. Those are the times where you would want to contact someone like Frank to start the enrollment process into Medicare, because you will be subject to penalties. You will be subject to, delayed enrollment if you don't enroll at 65. If you are turning 65, you work for an employer that has more than 20 employees. Your spouse works for an employer that has more than 20 employees. You do not have to enroll in Medicare. You're going to bypass your initial election period. That's the 7 months that surrounds the month you turn 65. And you will be eligible to elect your special election when your spouse or when you decide to retire, whatever that might be. You won't have a penalty assessed against you because you'll have what's considered qualified coverage. That's coverage that's as good or better than what Medicare has. I will actually have one caveat. If you happen to be listening to us in the federal prison system and you're turning 65, your spouse does need to enroll you in Medicare. I know that sounds crazy, but we did have one situation where we worked with an individual who was incarcerated. Coverage that is medical coverage provided by the federal prison system is not considered as good or better than Medicare. You need to enroll. These are the fun things you learn.
No, that's, when we talk about, we've serviced more people in the state than any other provider. I mean, we're covering all bases here, people.
That's right. And you would think that's a little counterintuitive because it's also government issued coverage, but it's not. I mean, it is government coverage. It's just not as good as Medicare, so they want you enrolled. Someone's going to have to help you out. I've left him awestruck.
That's wild. I did not see that one coming. Like a fastball up around the chin, it backed me off the plate. Okay, our next question. Will my doctors be covered under Medicare? Myth. I've heard more and more doctors and doctor networks are leaving the Medicare plans.
While it is always important, in fact, I would say this is one of the most critical parts of making your Medicare election, to ensure that your doctors are in the networks that you're looking at for the plans that you are considering. Medicare has very large, very stable networks, and over the years they've actually increased. And the reason for that is, as more and more people age into Medicare, physicians still need to be paid, right? So they're going to,
you would think,
right? So they're going to follow their patients, which is why more and more physicians have begun to accept Medicare Advantage plans as their patients begin to elect Medicare Advantage plans as their form of coverage. So we're finding that the physicians move with the market, but it is important that you want to check to make sure your specific physicians fit into the plans that you're looking at. And the way that we like to do this in our office is we send out a medical questionnaire in advance of your appointment that asks for your prescriptions, that asks for your physicians, so we can work the equation backwards. Instead of picking a plan and then making sure your physicians fit into it, we look at your cost of your prescriptions, we look at your physicians and determine which plan suits you the best.
And one of our texters has chimed in, let's hope the prison doctors are on that prisoner's Medicare plan.
I think it's funny. We don't want to leave the impression that we're going to prisons and enrolling people. This is an interesting situation because this is somebody that actually came to visit Aaron after he obviously had left.
Before he was incarcerated.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of an interesting situation. Again, I would just suggest here is that this myth about the networks getting smaller is not only counterintuitive, but it's just not true. If we think about, and this is, again, this dates me, is that when we go back to the initial beginnings of PPO plans, HMO plans, really what we call managed care plans now, which everybody's enrolled in, there were very small networks. And so what happened was, for business purposes, doctors began to enroll in these plans to follow their patients. And the insurance companies, again, had to begin to enroll hospitals, systems, doctor groups, etc., to get patients, i.e. to get customers. So the idea that the networks are small is really not true. And in fact, in Missouri and Illinois, the three major carriers, and honey, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, which is Aetna, United Healthcare, and Anthem, i.e. Blue Cross Blue Shield. They have the most robust networks in the country.
And I would
a lot
also
of these are also national. I mean, it's fabulous, and they're getting bigger, especially with their, I guess they used to call them their passport plans, where you can then participate with your plan in other cities using they're already the physicians are already signed up for their plans there.
And I would say, just to add to this, Essence, which is a regional company, even proves your point, Dad, in that their network has grown exponentially over the last several years as well. Now, you don't have access to that passport-like benefit where you can hook into a national network with Essence, but they've added SSM over the last several years, truly expanding the size of their network almost by 2/3. So even regionally based companies are able to participate because everyone wants to follow the direction that the market's going.
Good question.
I think we're going to we've got like dozens of these, but we're going to hit 2 more before we get to our next break, and then we've got a couple of text questions.
And the next question is, what is the donut hole? The myth. I will have to pay extremely high costs for medications coming on to Medicare.
So the truth of the donut hole is that when the Bush administration added prescription drug coverage back in 2006, in true government fashion, instead of incorporating it into Medicare, they just kind of threw it on top because Medicare did not have true prescription drug coverage before the first Bush administration. And what happened was they left not no coverage, which is what the gap is, but it is a reduced coverage amount for enrollees. But the great thing is less than 15% of Medicare enrollees will ever reach the donut hole. So the donut hole is when you and the insurance company have cost shared about $5,000 together in terms of the cost of your medication. So instead of paying a set amount, which we call a copay for your medication, you'll start paying a higher percentage, which we call co-insurance, for the retail cost of your medications. And when you and the insurance company have cost shared from $5,000 to about $8,000, you will then hit catastrophic coverage where all your medications will be covered at even elevated rates from when you were paying copays. So Medicare coverage for prescriptions is tiered in 2 ways. You have the traditional tiers of what type of medication you're taking, but then you also have tiered pricing, unfortunately. Now, that's going to be changing over the next several years.
You're stealing my thunder. I was under the assumption that there's going to be some rather large changes to the donut hole for next year.
That is correct. Let's hit, because we have a quick question about turning 70 and working under health insurance benefits.
And our texter writes, just turned 70 and still working with employer health benefits, enrolled for Social Security, and I've been approved for my first payment in April. I noticed that I've been enrolled in Medicare. I thought I checked. I didn't need it at this time. Is this automatic?
So when you enroll in Social Security, and very smart decision to take your Social Security benefit at 70, because as Rob's mentioned a few times, there's no benefit to waiting.
You've already sucked all the benefits you can out of it.
Right. You've already gotten all of your increases over the last several years. Now you would just be given interest-free loans to the government. And
we don't want to do that.
Certainly not. You will automatically be enrolled in Medicare Part A. Medicare Part A doesn't cost you anything, Medicare Part B is what you checked to the decline on. Now, you're going to receive a card in the mail that is, they call it your red, white, and blue card. It's your Medicare card. It's going to have Medicare Part A, your hospital benefit listed on it. Looks like you began in April, so most likely it'll have April 2024 as your effective date. When you receive the card, as long as you don't see a Medicare Part B, that means you have done everything correctly. You're only enrolled in the first part of Medicare, which is fine. What'll happen is if you do see that Medicare Part B also on there, you will have the opportunity to check the box again, mail the card back, and they won't deduct the Medicare Part B premium, which is that $174.70. And then you will have the opportunity when you do decide to retire, when you're no longer with your employer's health benefits, to elect your Medicare benefits through a special election.
Very, very good. And I think
last one.
We'll do one last one, and this will put a nice big bow on the whole Medicare segment. Question: how do you make money? Myth: if I have to pay someone to help me understand enroll in Medicare, it will cost me a lot of money.
Well, the great news here is, just like Rob said a few times already today, it costs you nothing to work with an individual like ourselves to discuss your Medicare options. And if someone is charging you a fee, you most likely, I usually don't say this, you shouldn't be working with them, because we are paid a commission for whatever you elect. You decide you like Medicare Advantage, the insurance company pays us a commission when you enroll with us. You decide you like a supplement and a prescription drug plan, both insurance companies pay us a commission for enrolling you. We do not charge fees for our guidance because we're going to be paid by the insurance company. You can kind of think of us as the low-cost marketing arm for those insurance companies. So if someone wants to charge an additional fee to you for their services, there are many people out there, just like Frank and our office, that do not charge fees in order to do that for you because, like I said, we're paid elsewhere.
And got a little follow-up. It says, thanks for the response. You guys are great. No, you're great. And thank you for texting.
Thanks for participating.
And spending your morning with us. We very much appreciate that. And with that, I think we're going to take our first break of the hour. So don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on retirement after these messages.
Hi, this is Stuart Rosenblum, president of Stewart's American Mortgage.
Stewie!
Mortgages are the biggest investment that a person's going to make in their life, yet most people don't know anything about it. Tune in for Mortgages and More with Stewie. That's me, where we can go over all the different types of mortgage programs in simple terms. You, me,
Stewie!
You'll become an expert after the first show.
Listen to Mortgages and More with Stewie, Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. on KTRS.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now, back to Straight Talk on retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
It's 10:32 here on the Big 550 KTRS. This is Straight Talk on retirement. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
And speaking of go ahead.
I was just going to say it was really nice, wonderful segment about Medicare. We're obviously here to answer those questions if you do have questions about Medicare, as well as your financial questions. So bring them on, Rob.
Yeah, we had a texter from the previous hour that because of our, because you care, we talk Medicare segment
yes,
that we couldn't get to, but we're going to circle back to it now. And our texter writes, hello all, you said something that created a question for me. I was laid off in September of 2023 and am still looking for a new job. That means last year's income was lower and this year's income could be lower than last year's. does that mean my Social Security benefit will go down in 2025?
No. So your Social Security benefit is based off your top 40 covered quarters. So that means every year that either you don't work, you work less, every quarter that you work less or don't work, those numbers fall to the bottom of your Social Security. Once you've locked in a benefit, the only change that you will see is an increase due to cost of living adjustments, or if you happen to end up with a higher paying job, you could see incremental increases over time of your Social Security benefit.
Right. And again, we don't also know the age of this particular texter, but the only reason your benefits might be reduced is if, again, you end up earning, if you're under your normal retirement age, and you end up earning more than your the Social Security take-back amount, which I believe is around $22,000 for this year, you could have a take-back. But otherwise, you'll be good to go.
All right, and our next texter writes, if I move out of the area to a new location and take another Aetna plan, will I get another $200 card and all the benefits, even though I've used them up this year so far?
Is this gentleman related to you?
He's it's
in the blood.
It's in the blood. It's prior. I believe all these things are in the blood.
So cool. Two cool things. One cool thing, one less cool thing. First is when you have to elect a new plan, even if it's through the same insurance company. So, for example, with Aetna, if you've left the service area but you found another Aetna policy that you like, for the quarter that you change, you get all of your new benefits again. So that $200 copay card regenerates every quarter. If you move within the quarter and let's say you use the $200 copay card already, but you changed plans and now you get a brand new $200 copay card for that quarter. You also get all of the benefits again. So let's say you used all your dental, you used up the vision benefit, you get those all renewed, but you start over with your maximum out of pocket. So the maximum out of pocket doesn't carry over for you, but none of the extra benefits carry over either. So you could think of it, if you've already spent a considerable amount of money on the plan, it could be a double-edged sword, or it could be all benefit to you because you didn't pay much towards your maximum out of pocket and now you get all your benefits back.
Everything starts over.
Everything starts over.
And I like the fact that he's already looking at that $200 card. That means he's probably taking advantage of all the other peripheral benefits in there. So,
right. That also means
suck them down. No, I mean
that also means take advantage of them before you switch policies.
What was that movie? I Drink Your Milkshake. There will be blood.
There will be blood.
I drink it up. Drink up those benefits, sir. Absolutely.
Of course.
Oh, and we've got one more texter on the line. Interesting discussion this morning. Love listening to you guys. Having said that, I plan on retiring at the end of the year. When should I come in for a coaching session?
Oh, this is a great question. Sounds like you're already thinking about retirement, which means when you're ready, which sounds like now is a great time to get all of those pieces in place. We can discuss not only your health insurance benefits. We obviously don't know your age. Are we talking about transitioning directly onto Medicare? Do we need to bridge that gap with
COBRA or the marketplace?
Exactly. Or a spouse's plan. Is your spouse planning to retire? Are they already retired? When do we elect Social Security benefits? How do we line up your income stream? When's it time to do that rollover? How much income are you going to need? We can get all of those questions answered, which means maybe you're retiring before the end of the year because, Dad, we used to talk about this a lot, which was unless you're in the healthcare industry or another industry that doesn't really have holidays, why retire in the winter when it's cold, when you have all of those holidays that you get to take advantage of? We generally see people retiring in the spring and the summertime when they get to really enjoy their initial months of retirement, but then also they don't have to give up all those vacation days.
Absolutely. And, just more to your point, the more time we have to prepare the runway, the better we can land the airplane.
That's right.
I couldn't agree with you more. And so the real, I don't want to say uncertainty, but if there's any temerity that people have about retirement is making that smooth transition. So if you're really thinking about doing this within the next 9 months, coming in soon is a good idea, because what will happen is it'll give us time to help you crystallize not just your thinking, but also seeing the flow pattern of the algebra. Also help get your investments in line and making sure that they're ready to make that transition. And at the same time, answer all these questions. And that's really what the big deal here is. The uncertainty comes from not understanding, in many cases, not even knowing what are the right questions to ask.
Or
but
what
also
your options are.
What your options are. So what we try to do is we educate you to a point where we're hopeful that you're able to add to not only the knowledge base that you have, but also so that you can begin to make some very good decisions. So the longer that we have to work with you on this, the better it is, because I'll tell you what, every game plan is flexible, whether it's over a 6-month period, over a 3-month period, over a 3-year period. Things change, things happen. So us creating that roadmap for you to run on is really the first step, and then it gives you an opportunity to really define your thoughts, your feelings, etc., as we get down to it. And as Aaron mentioned, with many folks, we find that they can retire earlier than they think, and at the same time, then we're really questioning them, which is, hey, is this the right time of the year? We've got a client that's coming in that we've been working with for the last 3 years, and she works at one of the very large airplane manufacturers here in the city. And we've been having this discussion. It seems like she's been wanting to pull the trigger for almost 2 years. But as she continues to get closer, either she gets a new job opportunity or they move her office or whatever. And so we're just, basically we've been sitting there ready to pull the trigger for the right time. And we just happened to get this call this last week. So we're ready for you when you're ready. So come in and visit with us if that's what you want to do.
And we're ready for John on line 1.
John, good morning.
Thank you for taking my call. What I'm concerned with, I have a Plan F, a United Healthcare medical supplement, and me and my wife are both on the same plan, and the premium is for both of us. So I was wondering if I can renegotiate that premium.
So most likely, are you in the state of Missouri?
Yes.
So my recommendation would be you have access to what's called the anniversary date rule, which means you can look across all of the insurance companies that offer Plan F and see if they will quote you a lower price. United Healthcare is not going to negotiate with you the premium, but the month that you elected your Medicare benefit, so whenever that plan initially became effective, is the month that you have an opportunity to make a change. So you can call Aetna, Mutual of Omaha, Transamerica, all of the other supplemental companies that offer Plan F, and see if they will offer you a lower premium, and you're able to make a switch without any medical underwriting to another Plan F.
I understand that Plan F was discontinued.
Yes, it was discontinued a few years ago. However, if those companies were offering Plan F, they most likely will offer you Plan F under an anniversary rule change.
I see. Well,
I'm sorry. I was just going to say. I was going to say our caller may want to consider also Plan G.
Well, that's not subject to the anniversary date change, so you'd have to go through medical underwriting to get that.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. The problem is I'm 82 years old, and I don't remember when I started it.
Oh, so just take a look at, all you have to do is take a look at what your Medicare Part B premium became, when your Medicare Part B became effective. That's on your Medicare card. So
right. Okay.
They got that covered for you. Don't worry.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You're very welcome, John. Thank you for calling in. And we've got some texters on the line. Love to see it. And our next texter writes, I'm turning 67 soon and waiting until 70 to take Social Security. Will the larger recent cost of living adjustment amounts help raise my benefit 3 years from now?
Yes, and if you happen to be someone that logs into your SSA.gov account, so the My Social Security account that you have access to through the Social Security Administration's website, you've probably already seen your benefit increase over time because of those cost of living adjustments. So just because you haven't elected Social Security, everyone has access to the, as they call them, the COLAs, or the cost of living adjustments, even if you're not currently taking your benefit. So many people that are waiting to take their benefit will see it increase in several ways. One, if you're earning more, that means that potentially you're adding to those higher covered quarters. Secondly, cost of living adjustments. And third, that 8% annual increase between 62 and 70 years old.
This is interesting because I've been obviously had a little bit of time here while I've been out in California, really thinking about whether I should be taking my Social Security benefits, electing them at this point, because I've hit normal retirement age. And, I've done the math several times, and, the thought of, putting off my benefit until I'm 70 years old would obviously increase the benefit that would be able for your mom should she kill me before, she goes away. So, and who could blame her, right? So, but I'm really thinking the other way, which is I really looked at the money and said, if I take my monthly benefit and I multiply that by 12, and I say, okay, let's take that over the next 2.5 years. What's the real break even to do that? And the real question becomes, the break even is about age 84. So why wait?
And we would be more than happy to assist in this area by reducing your income to meet the annual income limitations.
Would we? We can be helpful in this regard.
We could be of assistance to make the math work for you, Dad.
I think that's more. That would be a little more than what would be considered a haircut. Thank you.
Well, speaking of making the math work, why don't we make our break math work and take our second break of the hour, and then we'll be back with our final segments on Straight Talk on Retirement after these messages.
We welcome you to our great big small town of Belleville, Illinois. Whether you want to enjoy fabulous food in our restaurants, enjoy shopping at our one-of-a-kind boutiques, or you want to enjoy live music weekly throughout our downtown, Belleville is the perfect place to relax and unwind. For more information about Belleville, Illinois, please visit belleville.net or bellevillemainstreet.net. Brought to you in part by the Illinois Office of Tourism and Discover Downstate Illinois.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, welcome back. We've got about, I guess we have something like about 13 minutes left on the show. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877, or the nice and hot text line this morning, 84126 on the KTRS text line.
And it's still hot.
And it's still raring to go. And our next texter writes, do you help people in Washington State? If not, any recommendations?
We are more than happy to help anyone in any state. Just give our office a call, 314-863-0008. Or send us an email, Aaron@jblfinancial.com or Franklin@jblfinancial.com.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we're doing a financial review for them, helping them with a retirement game plan, What we're going to request is to receive financial information before the time that we visit, either by telephone or by Zoom, if they're out of state. That way, we're in a position where what we can do is be really prepared for them to have a meaningful discussion.
Absolutely.
And our next texter writes, because of a $50,000 capital gain, we didn't have any losses to offset the gain. That resulted in a $247,000 taxable income for 2023, which will double our Medicare premium in 2 years. Our income is pretty straightforward with Social Security, interest, and dividends. Any suggestions regarding how to reduce our income by $1,800 to avoid IRMA?
IRMA stands for Income-Related Medicare Adjustment Amount. You may have seen it on your bill if you're in a situation similar to our texter. Unfortunately, unless your income-related Medicare adjustment amount is due to loss of income, so you were working and then 2 years from now you are no longer working, so in order to create an appeal, that's the only appeal that's usually acceptable. Unfortunately, Medicare is going to say you have the $50,000 gain, so you have the cash to pay for it. There isn't really a way to avoid it unless you can create a capital loss. But you did this last year, so we're already out of 2023. So I'm sorry, unfortunately, the government's going to come calling.
Agreed.
It's unfortunate. And our next texter writes, I currently take a... jumping around here. We're getting so many. They're just
coming in hot
the
and
board
heavy.
Is jumping. I currently take a medication that Medicare doesn't pay for. Now, there is a 50% coupon that I use, but Medicare doesn't allow usage. Will I have to pay the $1,200 or give it up?
So here is my suggestion. Please give your insurance company a call or the individual that helps sign you up for your Medicare plan, if it's Medicare Advantage or if it's a prescription drug plan, because you should be able to submit a formulary appeal to allow them to add this prescription to your Medicare benefits. There are many prescriptions that Medicare doesn't cover on the face of it because they want you to do the extra work and submit what's called a prior authorization in order to have it covered under Medicare. Almost every medication that is in every therapeutic category either has that medication or a counterpart covered under Medicare. You shouldn't have to pay 100% out of pocket for it. It may be pricey, but you will at least receive some coverage for it.
Call your agent, right?
Yes, please. Or if you work directly with the insurance company, call them. Or you can always call our office.
Right, because if you were one of our clients, Frank would be making that call for you.
Absolutely.
Frank would be on it like white on rice.
There you go.
Our next texter writes, financial advice question. My son is 25. He maxes his 401k. Should he put it in a Roth or traditional, index funds or managed? I'm 59 and max my 401k Roth, or I'm 59. Should I max my 401k to a Roth or traditional for myself, indexed or managed? Thanks.
So I think that this all depends on income, because we talked about taking advantages of tax breaks now is going to be more beneficial than in the future, right? Because of the time value of money. So if you're in a higher income tax bracket, you want to take advantage of as much, reducing your taxes as much as possible in your higher income earning years. So I would always lean towards the traditional. If you're in a lower income tax bracket, say you're in the 10% tax bracket, then maybe being able to stuff some money into that Roth 401k before you start to reach the higher tax brackets would be beneficial to you. Dad, what are your thoughts?
I'm thinking that, I'm thinking exactly what you were thinking, honey, which is always maximize your tax deductible amounts first before you go into non-deductibles.
And you can play a little bit of a game, right, Dad? It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like if you're $20,000 away from the 10% tax bracket, but you can contribute the max to your 401k, you have the ability to do that, then the excess could go into the Roth 401k, but get yourself into the lowest tax bracket possible.
That's my thinking on it.
I'd also be looking at, what is my retirement game plan going to look like? How much income? What are the income sources that I'm going to have? How much will they be, and how will that compare to, again, the $90,000 number? So if I'm going to be in the 10% effective tax bracket at the time of retirement, which most of our clients are, by the way, guess what? Doing a Roth makes no sense whatsoever. Why don't bypass the tax deductions today to be pulling money from a Roth to save 10% in taxes later?
And then the second question, right? And then the second question is, what indexed or managed funds? And I would say, why choose only one option? If you are going to be making the investment selections, meaning you're not going to choose a target date fund inside of your retirement account, then why not have not only diversity in what you've purchased, but how you're purchasing it? So, you have a well-diversified portfolio across many sectors of the economy. Maybe you have a well-diversified portfolio in terms of some index funds, some managed funds. They both tend to perform slightly differently depending upon market environment, so you can be diversified on multiple levels.
Couldn't agree more. And I will tell you, as an insight into our investing for clients, is that we like to use both models, not just managed money, but also passively invested money, which is index funds.
Okay, and our next texter writes, I heard you speak about HSA plans earlier in the hour, and I have the opportunity to participate in one at work. Should I direct some of my pre-tax income there?
Absolutely. This is a great tool. It's the only triple tax advantage account in the tax code. You get deductions just as if you were contributing to a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA.
No taxes on the income that you put in.
Deduction on the income that you put in. If you have a certain amount of money inside of the HSA, they also allow you to invest that. No
taxes on the growth.
Right, so deferred taxes on the growth.
And as long as you take it out for qualified medical
expenses,
it's not taxable either.
That's right. So even if you let that grow for the next decade because you're not planning to retire for 10 or 15 years, think of the nice pot of non-taxable money you'll have access to pay Medicare premiums, to pay copays, to pay for your prescriptions, to pay for visits to the doctor, things like that. You'll have a nice kitty of money available to you that you never had to pay taxes on, as long as you follow all of those rules.
And all I would add here is, as Aaron was mentioning, usually it's the first $3,000 of HSA contributions that are going to require you to put this into some type of a fixed income fund. But after that, invest for growth. You want this money to grow because, again, the growth is going to be income tax deferred, and actually eventually the distribution will be tax-free, used for qualified expenses. So go, make it grow.
And many employers actually will match some of those HSA dollars. So if you aren't taking advantage of that, you're leaving some of your compensation on the table.
And we definitely don't want to leave compensation on the table.
Never.
And our next texter writes, I am turning 65 in November and am leaving my company's group health insurance. If I heard you correctly during your Medicare segment, you said going on to COBRA would not be wise. Is that true?
That is true. It would not be wise. Please do not elect COBRA.
Because then you'd be in line, like not only would you have to pay the exorbitant
COBRA
premiums, but you'd also be in line for that penalty that we talked about for going on to Medicare.
Right, and if you're concerned because maybe your spouse is under 65, or maybe you are still covering a child that's under 26 years old, each individual that's enrolled in the plan with you right now will have their own individual COBRA rights. So that means you can elect Medicare when you retire. Your spouse and potential dependent can elect COBRA until they'll have 18 months to stay on COBRA benefits. Or, if your spouse is turning 65, maybe a few months later, then she'll be able to elect the COBRA and then jump on to Medicare. So you don't have to move as a family once you leave the group.
I mean, there are situations where it would make sense to elect COBRA benefits, but, if we were trying to bridge a gap, but this is not one of them. So
exactly,
we want to avoid that.
Last quick question, if you can get it out.
When it comes to Social Security, what is considered full retirement age? Thank you.
Depends upon when you were born, but for most people now it's 67, right?
67?
Yes. If you're born after 1958, it's going to be 67 years old.
And that's something that you would be able to find on your MySocialSecurity.gov website if you have any questions. But if you have any more questions, don't hesitate to tune in to us next week. We're here every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Have a great Easter weekend.
The views and opinions expressed in the following paid program are those of the host, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of this station, its management, or owners.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group.